A very good morning, Team Zimbabwe. Mamukase. My name is Ronald Wekwamakushi, and welcome to Africa and Beyond the Television Network. Mkoma Simba, thank you very much for coming. So, this morning we need to reflect: how should a government function? It's very important for us to note that each and every government should function, and its mandate is to create policies. And these policies are guidelines which affect businesses, which affect all stakeholders in the economy, in the country. Those in the private sector and those in the public sector, those in the formal sector and those in the informal sector. So we are going to be guided by complaints which are raised by OK Supermarket when they were talking about the problems they are facing in terms of making their business viable, and the response which was given by the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance. So instead of the Ministry of Finance create a policy which will end in a formal market or informal sector, which is bleeding the economy, they've rubber-stamped the informal sector and they have destroyed the formal sector. We need to take a look onto his response to what was raised by OK.
Let me come back to another very controversial issue about these tuck shops versus formal retail. And there was a big retailer who went all out last week complaining. But how do you complain about a tuck shop which is paying 5 times more per square meter rent, does not have access to credit, so buys all the goods cash, right? Because they don't have any access to credit. Possibly they do not have a better system than what you have. And they does not have access to the cheaper foreign currency that is available in the market. They have to go to the parallel market. And you then come and say, look, you are not able to compete because they've been taken out of business by that tuck shop. If I was the board, I would fire you because it would be useless management. I would fire you. In South Africa, the spaza market in South Africa is 178 billion. 178. You can go on Google now, that's the size. That's almost 10 billion US dollars in South Africa. But I've never heard ShopRite, Pick and Pay, or Checkers in South Africa complaining that they are out of business because of these spaza shops. They've innovated around them. Yeah? So as economies, new economies emerge, as economies rationalize, things change. But again, you are dealing with management who only knew one thing, they only knew kuti rate inokwira and every month tinosangana and we change our prices. That's what they're used to. So we have got lots of FDs and MDs running these companies today who do not know what to do when an exchange rate appreciates. I've mentioned it before. If you walk into most treasuries today and you ask these guys, do you know what is called a stop loss? They don't know about it. All they know is that the rate will always go up, right? And you sit and you reprice every day. Once the repricing stopped, you have seen the casualties. It's not the reasons that they are actually putting onto the table. But those are some of the issues that... Thank you.
So, this is what George Guamatanga said. He is the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance and is in charge of policy formulation. So, what is happening, in my view, is that George Guamatanga missed a lot of issues here. Point number one, the tax shops are in the informal sector, which means they are not paying taxes. That is point number one. The 15% VAT, which is being submitted to ZIMRA, these tax shops are not paying. Secondly, the overall tax, this small tax shop do not pay. Thirdly, these small tax shops they are not affected by the issues of salaries. For example, what is the minimum wage, which is which OK is supposed to use? OK is guided by the minimum wage rule. The same labor laws are not applying to these tax shops because tiri kupinzana mabasa nhasi tichitodzingana nhasi pasina zvinoitika. But OK cannot fire you just like that. You have to go through processes. TM cannot fire you just like that. They will have to go through processes. These supermarkets, they are remitting monies to NASA. Are these tax shops remitting the same to NASA? No, that is not happening. They are contributing to pension funds, but these tax shops are not contributing to pension funds. So you will see that there is a lot these companies are going through, these businesses are going through, but the government does not care. They will talk about the issue of pricing. I have seen a lot of people arguing that OK, TM, and other supermarkets, they are overpricing their goods. It's not their fault. Take a look on how the exchange rate policy is. You will be told to charge your goods in Zimbabwean dollars. But what will be the exchange rate on that day? That will be something very important to note. What is happening is there are people who are deciding the exchange rate. And if you go on the parallel market, there is another exchange rate which is there, which means it will be cheaper for people to use their money at the tax shop than to go into OK supermarket and buy. For example, at a certain point in time, $1 was able to buy a period, a month, and you walk out with only one bottle of 500 mils Pepsi. No mabanzi, no whatever. But ukaenda pamsika, you buy mabanzi, you buy a bottle of Pepsi. It was not about OK. It was about the policy which was being implemented by the government of the Republic of Zimbabwe, where the pricing models were supposed to be matching with the exchange rate. So when the exchange rate is in a certain direction, you will see the shops will be overpricing. When the exchange rate takes a different direction, you will see the shops pricing way too low. And that will affect business. That is the reason why we are saying the issue of two currencies is destroying business. The issue of double currencies is destroying everybody. Let us have one currency. If we are using the Zim dollar, let us use the Zim dollar. If we are using the US dollar, let us use the US dollar. Let all other currencies be hinged to one currency. If we are using the US dollar, it means the Zim dollar we have to be hinged onto the US dollar. If we are using the Zim dollar, it means the US dollar should be hinged onto the Zim dollar. That should be normal. So he will give you an example of South Africa. South Africa uses one currency. They use the rand, which means there is no inconsistency. Number two, South African small businesses, they are taxed, they are formalized, and they are contributing to the economy. He is talking about billions, 178 billion. It's because that economy is formalized. But here in Zimbabwe, we have vanhu tax shop who are informal. Vari kungoita zvinhu zvavo, no regulations, no what. Itora mari United, tora mari takaenda. They are not guided by any policy from the government. They are not affected by any policy from the government. This is a clear indication of failure. This is a clear indication. Munhu ari kutobvuma kuti Tazvitadza. When you see a Home Permanent Secretary blaming the companies and saying vanhu vari in the informal sector vari kuzviita one, that is a clear indication that they failed to come up with policies which will formalize each and every business. The role of the government is to make sure that they formalize everything. They bring everything to normal, and everyone is operating under the laws which are supposed to be there. So by George Guvamatanga blaming these supermarkets which are raising serious issues, it shows that they don't have any idea, they don't have any plan. Together with their government and their president, they do not have any plan to make sure that they bring policies which will clamp down on tax shops or rogue tax shops. Why? It's because the people operating these tax shops are people from ZANU-PF. People who have been financing their rallies, are people who have been financing their political activities. These are people who have been evading from paying taxes. These are people who have been evading from paying NASA. These are people who have been evading from being held accountable. So you will see, kuti, business will never survive. Investors will never come to Zimbabwe under such circumstances. When we talk about investors not coming to Zimbabwe, you will be talked about sanctions. But they will never tell you about policy inconsistencies. They will never tell you about these inconsistencies which are causing investors not to come in. Remember, these bigger shops, they are affected by load shedding. These bigger shops, they are affected by a lot of things. But you'll be told, kuti murukwana mari ningi, marukwana mari auction, which is cheaper. You know, yeah, after how long? You apply money today, you get it after 2 months. So you understand that these people who are leading us, they are, number one, arrogant. Number two, they do not know what needs to be done. Number three, they are completely useless. And that is Mnangagwa's son here. If you take a look onto the screen, let me zoom it. On the far left is Mnangagwa's son. In the middle is Mthuli Ncube and George Guvamatanga here. Mnangagwa's son is there, smiling, clapping hands. They are very happy with the situation. They do not even care that these companies, they create jobs. These companies, they need to survive. The failure of these companies is an economic failure. The failure of these companies to have business is the failure of the government to have money in its own pockets, which means the government is going to be bankrupt. But who is going to be benefiting? Politicians who are running these tax shops. They did the same. They destroyed the transport sector. They are destroying the retail sector. They've destroyed every industry in Zimbabwe. Load shedding is taking a toll. And you will be told, kuti munhu ari kuaffectwa ne-load shedding ari kuexpecta kuti ange achioperata zviri normal. How does it work like that? Because things are perishing in fridges. Everything is upside down. And you hear George Guvamatanga pinning the blame on the retail. So, Team Zimbabwe, this is an admission, kutvedwe Tazvitadza. Because when companies raise issues, they tell you, you are the regulating authority. You are the policy formulators. Can you deal with A, B, C, D? And when you say you are on your own, it means you have failed. It means you do not know the reason why you are the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance. You do not know the reason why you have to make fiscal policies. So you see that we have people who are in charge of fiscal policy, but they do not know how to formulate such a policy. And that is the problem. You go to the monetary policy, you have the Mangujgas. They do not know what needs to be viable. Monetary policy which is not viable, then you have an economy which is not viable as well. So it is what it is, Team Zimbabwe. This is the issue which I decided to bring here to you. I have seen Warakashi, they were so happy. Nyasha, thank you very much for coming. Angela, Freddie, Masha, Mary, sorry. Mary, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And thank you very much for the contributions. This is the story which I made a decision to bring upon to you, where George Guvamatanga was seeming to be happy with how things are being done. He was blasting the OK leadership for complaining. But is that going to help Zimbabwe? No. It's because money is going to go directly into the pockets of a few, which means the issue of taxation is not going to work. The government will remain with nothing. As long as you go into OK, there are few people there because of policy inconsistencies, then know for sure that we are doomed to have more problems in the nation of Zimbabwe. That is what is going to happen. Nothing is going to move. Nothing is going to change. Unless we change how we do things, unless these leaders stop being arrogant,